Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new video. Today, we will be discussing the 2024 Republican primary and specifically Super Tuesday, which is coming up tomorrow, and where the primary currently stands and where it's probably going to go for Tuesday. So, yeah, let's get into that. So, Republican primary, it's going pretty much how everyone expected. Donald Trump is pretty much sweeping the board. Nikki Haley, really only the Democrats are voting for her when they're crossing over, but she doesn't really have that much popularity within the party itself outside of I don't know, a couple of politicians in the establishment, but that's not going to give you the nomination. The actual delegates that you win does get you the nomination, and she has 43. Trump has 273, and he's probably going to get a lot more during Super Tuesday. And if you look at the states that actually apply to Super Tuesday and just that massive delegate dump, yeah, she doesn't really have any chance in most of these states. Alabama, it's not even really that much of a competition. She's probably gonna lose by a pretty wide margin. I expect about 20% for her, maybe a little bit more if she gets enough people to cross over, but overall, she's probably gonna lose by a pretty wide margin. It's not really that important to her campaign. Alaska, she might win a county, maybe. She might win one of the more Democrat heavy counties where there's definitely a lot more squishes that are in the Republican Party there, but really, she's not going to win that much in the county. And yeah, she's not really going to win Alaska by that much. And plus, it's a caucus, which Trump does a lot better in the caucuses because it's a lot more simplified and there's a lot less ability to mess with it and cross over and all that kind of crap. But Alaska, it's probably going to go to Trump by a safe margin. Nikki Haley, she's probably going to get about 30 to 40 there. She's definitely going to have a lot more votes there because it's Alaska and Alaskan politics are just weird. They're just weird every single time. But yeah, she'll probably get a decent amount, but it's still not going to translate to that many delegates. Arkansas, again, she doesn't really have a floor, kind of like Alabama. It's one of those states that Trump should have no problem on winning, and he's going to pretty much get all of the delegates there, if not all of them. And she Nikki Haley, she doesn't really have any sort of floor there to actually build off of and potentially win the state because Arkansas, it's not really that contested in terms of Nikki versus Trump. So Trump is probably going to win it by a pretty safe margin, maybe close to 80% for him. California, for some reason, Nikki Haley is trying to bank off of this and say, oh, if I just win this super liberal state, then maybe I can win. California, Trump does pretty well there in terms of the primary, and I mean, Nikki might get a couple more votes in a place like Orange County where you got those more neocon squish type voters there, but outside of that, Trump is pretty much going to swing every single other county outside of Orange County, but he doesn't really need Orange County to actually win the state and win the majority of the delegates because it's winner take all. So even if he gets 50% plus one, he still gets all the delegates. And really, he doesn't really have much of a way to actually lose the state because, again, primary wise, he does pretty well there. I think him being from New York and moving to Florida really helps. He won it by a pretty comfortable margin in 2016, and nothing's really changed in terms of the primary. So, yeah, Trump's stronger. That might be a big change. But outside of that, California, it's probably going to go by a pretty safe margin. Nikki Haley, she might get 30-40% just because there's a lot of people in Orange County and potentially she can get a couple of votes there, but not really going to change anything. Colorado, this is another state that Nikki is for some reason banking on. It's not going to go to her at all. I know there's a lot of the more Republicans that just vote Democrat in the presidential election, but if like McCain ran again or Mitt Romney, they would probably vote for them, kind of like Arizona. But Colorado, it still has a lot of Republicans in terms of the primary that would vote for Trump no matter what. And She might win a couple of counties, but outside of that, she's not really winning the actual state where a lot of delegates. Maine, again, another state that she's for some reason banking on because she's kind of seeing it as a new New Hampshire, but I mean, Maine, she'll probably win a couple of the counties just because it's definitely a lot more liberal than New Hampshire, but still, you're not going to get many delegates there or many counties regardless because even New Hampshire, she couldn't win at all. She won one of the counties, and that's pretty much it. I expect the same thing to happen in Maine, probably a little bit worse, but outside of that, she's not really going to win anything. Massachusetts, this is pretty much the only state in terms of Super Tuesday outside of Vermont that she can actually win. Massachusetts, you got a bunch of liberal voters there and a lot of shenanigans in terms of the primary and Democrats voting in it and independents. It's just really weird and I wouldn't really be shocked if Massachusetts went to Nikki, but outside of that, Trump has a pretty decent shot at winning it, but Nikki, this is pretty much her best bet at winning something outside of Vermont. But if she does win it, she's just going to use it to extend her campaign. Maybe told the convention. I have some weird hope that maybe at the convention she can just unseat Donald Trump as the nominee. But outside of that, yeah, she's pretty much cooked for Super Tuesday. Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, they're pretty much going to go all heavily towards Trump. There's not really much of a floor for Nikki Haley. She might do the best in North Carolina, but Minnesota, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Trump has the Rust Belt appeal, and Nikki Haley, she's not really liked in the Rust Belt at all. That's why she does so poorly in terms of polling with the Rust Belt versus, say, Ron DeSantis or Joe Biden, because she doesn't really have a lot of more Rust Belt appeal. If she did win the nomination and went to the general election, she would probably have a lot more appeal in some place like Arizona, where you got the more McCain squish voters, but she would all ultimately lose the election because a lot of the hardliners just wouldn't like her at all. And then Oklahoma, it's not really that contested at all. There's pretty much no Democrat support there, and it's pretty much just a closed primary. There's not really a lot of crossovers or any tampering there. It's mostly just Trump voters that live there going to vote, and then he wins the state with like a 90%. It's not really that contested. Tennessee, again, not really that contested. She might win one county, and that would be the liberal counties, but outside of that, not really winning that much. It's kind of like Iowa, except if it was only Trump and Nikki. She's really going to only win one county, and that's pretty much it, if even. What's probably going to happen is that she wins one county by, again, a very similar margin to the county that she won in Iowa by one vote. Texas, again, she's probably going to win, I don't know, maybe Austin, but that's pretty much it. And every other county is going to go to Trump, which he can definitely win a majority of the delegates, and then some of the delegates are passed on by congressional seats, but Texas, in terms of congressional seats, there's not really an overwhelming Nikki support, kind of like South Carolina. So she's not really going to win any of those delegates. She might win one, and that would be the Austin one, but outside of that, she's not really going to win that many delegates there. And with that in California, that's a huge loss and essentially just kills any chance of her actually gaining enough support within the party to potentially unseat Donald Trump, which she was never going to do. Utah, it's a caucus, so Trump should do a lot better there, but again, it is Utah. You have a lot of those Mitt Romney people there, and they might vote for her, but outside of that, it's pretty much just uh, toss of the dice. If it goes to Nikki or Trump, it's probably going to go to Trump, but Nikki Haley winning it, it's definitely a lot more unlikely than Massachusetts or Vermont, but I wouldn't cry in my sleep if she actually won it because Utah, again, like Alaska, politics are weird there. it was a really strong state for Ron DeSantis until he dropped out along with Florida. But outside of that, Utah, you got a lot of Mitt Romney voters there, so they might vote for Nikki, but Trump is still probably going to sweep the floor with her. Vermont, this is probably a state that Nikki is going to win, and she's just going to use it to extend her campaign, kind of like if she wins Massachusetts. Vermont, you pretty much got 20% of actual Republicans, and then you still have technically a lot of Republicans that live there, but they vote Democrat pretty much every single election outside of the gubernatorial campaign. But again, their governor, who's endorsed Nikki Haley, he's a complete liberal. He may be even more liberal than Joe Biden. That's why he keeps getting elected. But yeah, she's probably going to win Vermont and then say, oh, I want to stay. See, I'm so loved. And she's just going to stay in the race until she either drops out, the funding dries up, or she waits until the convention and gets her ass kicked. And then the Virginia primary, this is the last one. Trump is probably going to win it. Nikki Haley is probably going to win a couple of counties in Northern Virginia because they've gone left far off of a cliff. And yeah, I probably would expect her to win a couple of those counties, but winning a couple of those counties isn't really enough to actually win the primary. And Virginia, it's probably going to go to Trump by a pretty wide margin. Maybe at worst, it goes by New Hampshire margins where Trump still wins, but he doesn't win by that much because of crossover voting. And simply, Nikki Haley has a lot more Democrat support than Trump does. But overall, Super Tuesday is pretty much going to be a bloodbath for Nikki Haley. She's only really going to win 2 states and maybe 3 if she's lucky, but honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if she doesn't win any of these states. Outside of Vermont, that might be a little bit surprising, but again, Nikki Haley is just not liked in the Republican Party or favored to win pretty much anything here. She's not really going to win that much, and the states that she does actually win, she's going to be winning them by very narrow margins. Outside of Vermont, she's probably going to win that by a pretty decent margin. But outside of that, what does she even have to win anymore? She can win Vermont. She's won DC and can win Massachusetts, and that's pretty much it. Outside of Utah, she's not really going to win any other state, and yeah, that's not really enough delegates to actually stand a chance of getting the nomination, which she was never going to get in the first place. But yeah, if you think Nikki Haley is going to win Massachusetts or Vermont, leave it in the comments below. If you think she's going to lose it, leave in the comments below. If you think Trump is going to win one of these random states like Massachusetts or Vermont, leave in the comments below. If you think something else crazy might happen, leave in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.